It's a great pleasure for me to be with you today, and I thank the organizers very warmly for the invitation. The subject of my speech is Greece in the framework of the New Silk Road. As you all know, over the past 5 years, what became manifest is what was being prepared since the 1970s, the domination of financial capitalism over countries' economies, and in particular of their national policies. The economic crisis of 2008 transformed itself into a humanitarian crisis, which especially hit the economies of most European Union countries and the United States. Among them, my country, Greece, which was already in a vulnerable economic situation, very hard hit. Greece became a member of the European Union on January 1st, 1981. The creation of that union, and I insist on the past tense of the verb to be, was one of the greatest political and economic achievements of post-war Europe, because it emphasized the social state. The Second World War had devastating effects on the populations of Europe. He recalls that his country became a member of the European Union in 1981, that was a very great achievement, but it's no longer the case today. Whereas the initial project should have reached a high point with the creation of the common currency, the euro, it was supposed to be a factor to help the integration process in the European Union. But the worldwide credit crisis of 2008 revealed the fact that the Eurozone had no line of defense, nothing, and was not ready politically, economically, monetarily to manage the crisis and the ensuing recession. The credit crisis became the debt crisis of the Eurozone. In other words, the Eurozone fails because the treaty not only did not provide for, but in fact prohibited a member state from being rescued by its partners. I am not the only one who has admitted that. The IMF itself stated in December 2013 that the Eurozone was in worse shape than in 2008, while the United States, where the crisis began, had been able to overcome the crisis and to begin an economic recovery. The figures, dear friends, speak for themselves. The unemployment rate in the Eurozone is over 12%, with the highest rates in Greece, 27%, Spain, Portugal, and Cyprus. More than half of the unemployed are under 25 years old. That's about 10% of the youth in Greece who have no job. And most of them are long-term unemployed. In other words, our economy does not create any extra jobs, and which it cannot, a fortiori, integrate the young people with their skills and knowledge. More than 300,000 Greeks have left Greece over the past 2 years for Europe and for the United States. These are young people with qualifications, with skills. The vision European citizens had of a union of citizens collapsed brutally in 2008. It's sad to say so, but it's nonetheless so. The European Union today is nothing but an autocracy which aims to sell off the economies of other member states to the banking system and to dismantle national sovereignty. In the EU today, the bankers take political and economic decisions for the governments and the peoples. We have lost the power of the citizens over power. Democracy is dead. Moreover, the unilateral management of the crisis in Europe by Germany and its hegemonic role threatens to lead to catastrophe. Those are not my words, dear friends, but those of one of the greatest political thinkers, the German Jürgen Habermas, which he said in a recent speech at the Université of Louvain in Belgium, while calling for more solidarity and more Europe. The independent Greeks support the following positions. First, respect for the sovereignty of member states of the EU, instituting a European Union of equality, autonomy, and solidarity, with full legal status of the institutions and activities of the national member states. Second, immediate abolition of the loan protocols and agreements, contracts. Most of these contracts have never been signed. They are agreements which have not been submitted to the parliaments of the national parliaments of the member states. Third, the repositioning of the European Parliament in the decision-making process. Four, drawing up a European development project based on social justice. A systematic fight against corruption, systematic fight against tax havens. At this point, I would say that Germany does not give Greece, in spite of a lawsuit, they will not compensate for the people who were hired illegally by Siemens. Number 7, definitive treatment of the debt crisis in the Eurozone under a European agreement similar to that of the London Conference in 1953, which settled the German debt after the war. 8, the immediate adoption and issuance of the Eurobond by the European Central Bank. The immediate establishment of a European rating agency to assess the solvency of the member states. A tax on financial transactions. The separation of commercial banking from investment activities. 12, the systematic fight against unemployment, and in particular for young people. The restoration of the welfare state, the fight against neo-Nazism, and number 15, repositioning the problem of immigration by immediately changing the terms of the Dublin II Treaty. On Greece, at this time, we have an immigration of 2.5 million foreigners who have no job, who have no future. They're blocked in Greece and they cannot leave. However, Greece does represent a kernel of stability, energy security, and peace in the greater region of southern Europe, and it could become a bridge of communication and understanding between East and West. Our membership in NATO and the EU does not prevent us from maintaining close political, economic, and cultural relations with other countries, especially those with which we have historical relations, such as Russia and China. We should develop those relations in the framework of the more general strategic interests of West and East. The question which arises is the following. Is it possible that the maritime and land Silk Roads contribute to the economic recovery of the European continent and of Southeast Europe and North Africa? Ancient Greece played a historical role in the economic, cultural, and political development of the then-known world. It was the center of the world trade routes at the time and of economic development, from the Balkan Peninsula to the Baltic Sea in the north, to Russia and the Indian subcontinent to the east, and the Mediterranean countries and the African continent to the south. Today, we are witnessing the resurrection of the Silk Road, both on land and on sea. Implementation of this majestic plan presents Greece with the opportunity to take up its historical role in the region and to consolidate almost permanently its geopolitical position as a pillar of economic development toward the above-mentioned regions. The development of these new trade routes will lead to a boom of different means of transportation because of the increased amount of goods that will have to be transported. That means the almost certain development of Greek infrastructures, railways, roads, ports. The future of Greece could be better if a strategic orientation were taken to establish links with some of the most dynamic economies of the world and to find new sources of economic support. One of these countries, besides Russia, is China. Those who know China and its needs know that Greece plays a preponderant role in the region, not only for historical and cultural reasons, but also economically, because Greece is the most economical conduit for Chinese exports on their way to the rest of Europe, to the Arab Peninsula and North Africa. Dear friends, at this point, I would like to inform you that China is already in Greece. When I was State Secretary, Deputy State Secretary for the Merchant Marines, I signed in November 2008 an agreement between the Piraeus Port Authority and the Chinese COSCO Group for a 30-year concession of part of the container station in the port of Piraeus. This port has become a link for East-West trade and allowed Greece to consolidate its presence as an economic center of Southeast Europe, and in particular of the Mediterranean, during a particularly precarious period for Middle Eastern and North African countries. Furthermore, the port is taking on a strategic role in cargo transport from China to Europe and vice versa. A few months ago, in July 2004, a new agreement was signed with the COSCO Group, which will invest 230 million euros in the port. With that investment, the port of Piraeus will become the largest in the Mediterranean, and it will be able to increase its capacities from 3.7 million containers to 6.2 million per year. Meanwhile, a recent study shows that the turnover of companies headquartered in Piraeus will reach 1.5 billion euros per year, while the guaranteed income of the port is 3.4 billion euros. Finally, 800 jobs will be created thanks to that investment. In that perspective, linking the port with the railway infrastructure, as it was done last year, ensures that goods arriving in Piraeus will be routed quickly to the markets of Central Europe. Similarly, goods from factories in Europe can go faster and at lower cost to all other destinations worldwide. I would just add to that that China's commercial interest focuses on the expansion plans of COSCO for the port of Piraeus and the development of the rail network. However, that does not exclude the possibility of future investments in similar infrastructure elsewhere in Greece. For example, at Patras. Piraeus was thus established as a gateway for East-West trade, and its role as economic center of the Mediterranean and Southeast Europe has been strengthened. But Greece is not only Piraeus. There are other ports in Greece that can benefit from the Silk Road. A prime example is the port of Igoumenitsa on the Adriatic, one of the most important ports in the region, with a passenger transit of about 200,000 and 100,000 trucks per year. Thanks to its easy access to the Ignatia-Odos highway linking Greece to the Balkans, the port of Igoumenitsa gives Chinese good access to those countries as well. Moreover, should the Chinese study to link the Danube port of Thessaloniki via Belgrade become reality, then we will have direct access from Thessaloniki to the heart of Europe. And then, by using the Rhine, all the way to the ports of Antwerp, Rotterdam, and Hamburg. Another strategic positioning could be the link of the Euxine, the Black Sea, across the Caspian Sea to Central Asia and Siberia on the one side, and to Iraq, Iran, and the Indian subcontinent on the other. Finally, in the near future, when the Strait of Suez is enlarged, and together with the Chinese plan for the Danube, Greece will become the transit hub for Chinese products while reducing costs and travel time. Dear friends, the party that I have the honor to lead, the Independent Greeks, has already developed a national reconstruction and development plan, which calls, among other things, for upgrading the Greek Railway Authority so that all of Greece is covered by modern infrastructure to allow cheaper, faster, and above all, safer transport. The Patras, Athens, Thessaloniki, Promakonas is outdated and needs to be urgently modernized. Also, immediate aid for commercial trade by opening up new markets and attracting investor interest through realistic and achievable economic incentives. The establishment of a stable and investment-friendly environment thanks to a stable fiscal framework, the fight against bureaucracy and corruption, the reduction of tax ratios, and the reduction of the time needed to implement investments. And that should all be maintained in a constitutional time period of 10 years. Another point is the creation of a free zone for the merchant marine, safeguarded in the Constitution, and the establishment in that free zone of a merchant marine center, and concession of inactive industrial areas to investors outside the EU based on low tax ratios, provided the investors propose a 20-year plan for employment of the unemployed. I would also say that there is also draw your attention to the fact that Japan also has important economic and maritime links to Europe. And we also have the cultural and political relations between all of these countries on the Silk Road will, of course, be enhanced through this development. And we will finally be able to speak of a new world based on mutual respect, dating back to ancient times. Silk diplomacy is only a question of time, and all the things that I just mentioned will be the symbol of this expanded cooperation, which will contribute its part toward global stability and the promotion of peace. Thank you very much.
Thank you.